Welcome back to the Top 10. I'm Tom Vasel.
How you doing? I'm Zee Garcia.
And I'm Sam Healey.
Now, what we do with our Top 10s is most of our Top 10s tend to have the same games over and over and over again. Or not, but you'll hear a lot of recurring games.
They're newish.
And so this time, we decided to go with the opposite extreme, and we're going to talk about our Top 10 obscure games. So we should warn you up front that the chance of you finding these for a cheap price, or even at all, is probably smaller.
More than likely, yeah. I would imagine.
All these are available at Cool Stuff today. And
there's a few that are definitely hard to find, and there's a few that are not that hard to find.
All right. Well, how did you pick what an obscure game was?
Well, the first thing I did was just kind of go through everything I've played, and that was a while, and just pick things that I know are not commonly spoken of whatsoever. And then I went a little bit deeper and looked at how many people owned the game on Board Game Geek, and sort of culled from that and how much I liked the game.
Now, did you are your 10 in any particular order, or is it just 10?
In the order that I enjoy. Once I picked the 10, the order I like them in. So number 1 is just a game I like considerably better than 10.
Okay, I'm fairly similar in that regard, except I went by on Board Game Geek like the number of people who've rated the game, who've actually played the game. Okay. And I also kind of disregarded anything that came out in the past couple of years because there's a chance that it could become big. And just because, like for example, Myth has less than 50 ratings on Board Game Geek right now. Right. But I feel confident it's going to be one of the biggest games of the year, probably. So, and then I also went by my gut too. I said, I never see anyone playing this. I never hear anyone talking about it. So, and I ranked mine kind of from best to worst, although they're also obscure that it's not a huge deal for me.
Right. I kind of went my first jaunt into this was to just look at all of the games on Board Game Geek, and I used the number of users that had rated it as my measuring stick, so to speak. Put it backwards to where the least rated one was at the least voted on rather was at the top, and then the most was at the bottom. And I went through there, and then I went through probably, a lot of pages before I actually found a game that I recognized. And I was done doing it that way. So I just looked at my collection, and I went by those games that have about 500-ish or less user ratings.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like scanning through the pages of Board Game Geek, and there's 100 ratings per page, and there was 100 plus pages that had more than 30 ratings, and so that's it's 10,000 games. So that was a lot of. I started scanning through them, and I might have missed a couple, and I'm not apologizing for that because this was the hardest list I put together so far.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
It's difficult.
But maybe maybe in the comments you guys can talk about an obscure game that you like that no one else has ever seemed to hear about. So without further ado, let's go.
Number 10.
All right, my number 10 is a game...
Twilight Imperium 3.
No. My game is a game that's actually was printed in 1994 in celebration of Brazil's winning the World Cup. It's made by a man by the name of Santiago de la Peña, and it's called Goal.
So how many letters are in that?
I don't know. There's a whole lot. That's just how I said it. But there's no A.
I'm gonna say all my titles that way.
Yeah. Okay. It's fun.
Number 10.
But anyway, it's a game. It's a soccer game. I'm a soccer fan. I'm a soccer coach at my high school. At the high school I teach at, so I enjoy soccer a lot. And this is a game that really caught my attention because of that soccer theme. And it's really flown under the radar, and it's really unfortunate because it has a really cool roll move mechanic where you have one dice for the ball, you have one dice for other men that the players of the game, and it determines how far you can move them and how many you can move and that type of thing, and then how far the ball moves. Those are the 2 dice. But when the really fun thing about it is that when you get into the penalty box, the 18-yard box, you can actually, there's a second board to where you there's a shooter, and then the person that you're playing against becomes the goalie.
Not sounding that fun, but all right.
And so if you can get it past...
Oh, you're saying it's like a dexterity game?
Yeah, it's really cool. It comes with a little ball, and you flick it, and if you can get it past your guy, you score the goal.
That's cool.
I think it's really fun.
Maybe. I still haven't played a good soccer game. I mean, I played some good ones, but I haven't played any that felt like soccer.
Yeah, I got that. I mean, it's a hard game to replicate, I guess you could say, on a board game. But,
Right.
But that made my number 10. Goal!
All right, my number 10 is the newest game on my list, and so it's kind of hard to call that one, I guess, obscure, but it came out. I really enjoyed it, made a good review of it, and then it has 20 ratings on Board Game Geek, and that's Schlock Mercenary, which is a game from Ape Games. I want to say it came out 2 years ago, maybe 3, but it's based on the comic strip Schlock Mercenary, which is a kind of a silly comic strip. It's like a serial comic, but there's aliens and they fight off enemies, and that's the way that the game is. You're moving around on a spaceship, and you're fighting off different aliens, and the aliens really have some interesting and unique powers, and the combat system's really cool because you roll dice and are assigning hits with the dice. I like it. It's very entertaining. I'm really surprised it didn't. Maybe because it didn't have miniatures. Maybe that's the thing. But
Right.
that's.
I actually played that with you.
Did you think it was pretty cool?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It certainly deserves more than 20 ratings.
Yeah.
So that's Schlock Mercenary Capital Offensive.
All right. My number 10 is a little trick-taking game called Pala. And this is a game put out by Cambridge Games Factory, the guys that did Glory to Rome.
Really?
And
I must have missed that one.
it's a really cool game. It's a trick-taking game, but you're playing with colors, and so it plays with the idea of mixing colors. And so if somebody leads, let's see here, somebody leads green on your turn, you can play green, or you can play yellow-blue.
Oh, that's cool.
And and so it plays with the idea of combining colors in your hand. You can play 2 cards instead of 1 card sometimes, or it's a really cool idea without beating you over the head with the color thing like that painting game does. What's the painting game?
Pastiche?
Yes. Which just gives me a headache.
It's not that hard. Red
gives me a
plus
headache
blue
looking at
is
all the,
purple.
Looking at all of it so long just gives you a headache. But this is a good trick-taking game. It says there's like 100 plus people, about 170 that own it, which is what I went by.
Well, that's partially because Cambridge made it. So hopefully someone else will pick it up if it's that good of a game
And it's a
and
neat
reprint it.
game. I like it. It's a good trick-taking game. Check it out if you can find it.
What's it called again?
It's called Pala.
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 Number 9.
All right, my number 9 is a game that I really enjoyed, and I had hoped that an American company would pick it up, but did not happen, and that's called Mutiny on the Little Blue. I don't know if you remember this one. This is a game where there's a ship that's moving around, and at the beginning of the game, one person's the captain. And that captain, each time the ship moves, it stops at an island, and there's a certain amount of treasure that the captain will get depending on who he takes with him.
Okay.
So you can pick one person, like if he takes the first mate, he'll get this. If he takes the cook, he'll get, it depends. Each island has 2 crew positions who will help him find stuff. The problem is everyone's stuff is secret, except for the captain. Mm-hmm. So the captain has to pick someone. You say, take me, and I'll give you, if you take me, captain, I'll give you half the treasure or whatever. Whatever the thing is. But there's a mutineer in the game. So if the captain picks the mutineer gets to be the new captain. And then he's the captain from then on. And each turn, all the roles are shuffled, except the captain stays captain until someone is a mutineer. And if you play with more players, there's 2 mutineers. So I really like it. I mean, if you can't lie, it's not a very good game.
Right.
I played with a guy one time who refused to lie, and he ruined the game for everybody. Because since he refused to ever lie, he would say, oh yeah, I'm the mutineer. And so when it would be between him and me, I'd be like, I'm the first mate. And he'd say, no, I'm the first mate. What's the point of me even saying anything, So the moral of the story, children, learn to lie.
You lie often.
So that's Mutiny on the Little Blue. The designer of that game, Christian Osterhaus, I forget his name, but he has done some recent games that are really good too, and I can't remember what they are. So that's a worthless statement. Go.
Cool. All right, my number 9 is it's this little game that got some buzz when it first started showing up on Board Game Geek because the cover illustration was so cool, but because it was made from clay, and it's called Mare Balticum.
Oh, it looked cool.
And the image on the cover is really neat. You know, everything was made from like little clay, and it was
like claymation almost.
Even the water was like clay. It was really cool. And the game's neat. It's a family weight game, but it's really cool. And you have little ships that go out there and you fish the seas and then sell that fish. Very simple. Even everything in the game is made from that art style, and I really like it. It's 35, 40 minutes, plays well, it's quick, it's neat. I like it a lot. Mare Balticum.
Mare Balticum. That's a cool name. All right. My number, we're on what, 9?
Yes, sir.
This is the second game. This is actually a, hold on to your seats, everybody. This is an abstract strategy game.
Uh-oh.
But Sam,
Is there going to be crossover?
your abstract strategy.
No.
There might be. This is a really obscure game as far as I can tell. Only 133 people have absolutely have rated it on the Geek. Now, it's called Dragons of Kyr, or Kyr, K-I-R.
Or it's called Darter. Darter was the
Yes.
original name.
Darter was the original.
This was my number 11.
Really?
I almost picked it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Darter was the abstract strategy game. Dragons of Kyr, they actually tried to paste a little bit of a theme on it.
Yeah.
And I mean they
It's
had
a
to
dragon.
They had to use a lot of glue, let me tell you. But the idea is that there are 4 dragons around the board, and each player controls 2 of them. And you're trying to destroy the other person's camp or tent, the other general's tent,
Right.
with the dragons. And if you did that first, then you won. If yours was destroyed, you lost. Is generally how I remember the game
Yeah,
playing.
think of it as a perpetual pinball machine.
Yeah. It's a really fun game, and it's one of the only abstract strategy games that I enjoy playing. I thought it was really cool. It's kind of not anymore, but originally I thought it was cool that it came in a tube.
Yeah, I still remember, like, oh, tube, that's so cool. Now when I get a tube, I'm like, oh, this is garbage.
Exactly, it's so hard to store. You have to just set it on top of.
But it wasn't just a tube. It was a tube that was this big.
Yeah, it's a huge long tube, right?
Yeah.
I've never played this.
The whole
pieces were wooden.
The whole playmat comes rolled up in it, and it's a fairly good sized board. All the pieces are wooden blocks or different shapes of wood, and it's just a really cool game, I thought, and made my list, number 9.
Yeah.
That one I gotta check out.
Dragons of Kyr.
Number 8.
All right.
This is another trick-taking card game?
It is not. This game, my number 8, is called spelled PRRT ... And this is a game in which
Right.
it's a group of people, and you are someone has passed gas, and you are trying to pass the blame to who passed gas by playing cards. And
This is a... Welcome to the Adult Dice Towers show. I mean,
this is it's a good game. It's basically a party game, and again, it's supposed to be funny. You play cards. It's mathematical, that part.
Wait, you mock the themes of my games?
Some of them,
it's
yes.
obscure, but it's a good game. Again, it's quick, it's neat. It's put out by the same company that put out their little card game. It's kind of like Uno, a little bit, called MOW, M-O-W, and they have that same look, very same art style. It's a little hard to find. The copy I've played
I wonder why.
came from
I can't believe it didn't
Germany,
sell more.
Yeah, but I do like it. I did think it was interesting. I did enjoy it. It makes for a good, funny, big group card game. And there you go.
Okay. Sam, is yours called...
No, mine. My number 8 is up in the 500 range for the number of ratings that it has, a number of voters that it has on the Geek. But it's a really cool game about expanding a kingdom and sending your workers out. It's not a worker placement game, but the whole thing is you're sending the people out to build roads, to spring up markets, to bring up villages, and all this other kind of stuff.
Is Sam talking?
What is it?
And it's called Milestones. It's called Milestones.
Okay.
It's a very... People just don't talk about it very much anymore, and I thought it was a pretty solid game. It's not difficult, of course, and it doesn't have a whole lot of requirement for brain power, but it's a game that I know my family has really enjoyed a lot, and they've requested it many times, but just people aren't talking about it anymore.
This is the one that has the people track at the top.
It's got kind of like
You put the people
triangular. It has a triangular.
It's almost a rondelle. You're moving the guy around,
and the board has a bunch of triangles.
Yeah, yes, the board has a bunch of triangles on it, and it's it's basically just a point scoring mechanism.
Yes,
at all of the ways. It's another point salad type of game.
Yeah, but it's a medium weight one, which is kind of nice sometimes.
It's very. I think it's very light. It's not very heavy at all.
That's Stronghold Games.
So Milestones.
Okay, my number 8 is an old game. I have no idea who the publisher is, but it's called Organized Crime. You played this with me back in the day. Organized Crime is a 4-player game. You got to play with 4 players, and each person is a crime syndicate on the side of the board. And you have these little gangsters that you move around, and you have one big gangster. And your whole goal is to go kill the other guy's gangster. But you have to make it through their gangster. So you move them around, and if you have to move past them. But the way that you can do this, and the way that you can get the chance to go and try and kill them, is you need money. So you're going around and you're corrupting government officials, but every time you do that, you have to get permission from at least like 1 or 2 other players to do it, and maybe give them a cut. The game there's roll and move aspects to it, but it is fun because of the theme, and it's also really mean. Every time I played it, I don't have it anymore, but every time I play it, I would say, okay, listen, we're friends. Everyone, we're friends, okay? You gotta remember that, because as the game goes by, you're like,
we're friends.
We're friends. So anyway, that's called Organized Crime. Oh, and it has, if we ever do a top 10 list of worst covers, this would be on it, because it looks like they hired 3 relatives of the designer to dress up in a zoot suit and a gangster, and they are the fakest looking gangsters /
They look like they took one of those photos of the fair, yes. Right?
Yes, but it looks worse than that, actually. It's like, you almost feel like they were made to do it. You want a part of this? Get in that costume. Anyway, that's Organized Crime.
Number 7.
All right, my number 7 is it's basically a dexterity game. It's called Lice Shower.
Okay, seriously, first, now lice shower.
Lice shower. What are you going for all the bodily functions here? Is that
No, this is what it's called. This
Back
game
to
is a
school.
game. It's basically an abstract game, but it's a dexterity game where each player has a bag that has tokens in it that feel differently. Each token feels differently. It has like a texture.
I'm really glad I haven't played this game.
Yes. So you have a board that has patches basically of the same textures as the tokens you have in a bag. And you play the game in the dark. You have to turn off the lights, and everybody at the same time puts their hand in the bag and starts to feel for a tile, and then you have to find that chunk on the board and put it there. But, so if you go again, you find it, you put it again, but you got to make sure that 2 of your tokens are not, because if there's another token there, then you go on top of that one. But you have to make sure it's not your color. And if it's someone else has already played on top of yours by the time you went back to that spot, then that's fine. But you can't see them, so you have to, like when you put one, if there's 3, then you have to be like, okay, this one's 3, I'm going to leave mine there. But you're working, there's like 8 or 7 spaces, so by the time you're back to one, you might have forgotten how many there were there. You know? So you got to like, okay, wait, there were 3 here, or were there 4 already? Is this top one mine? Because then I better not play it. And so if you don't, then you put it in front of somebody else, and when the round is over, then you check what happened, and there's a spot that gets washed, hence the lice shower. Things are supposed to be lice. And that's the one that goes like out of the game. And anyway, it's a funny game. It's a weird game because you play in the dark, and you hear everybody like wrestling and feeling for things in bags. So
Teenagers may not play this game.
yeah, no.
really.
But anyway, there you go. Lice shower.
Okay, it sounds terrible, but at the same time, you made the game sound okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. It can be.
We'll have to try it sometime. All right, my number 7 is a game from Korea called Cat and Fish. This is actually a game I still have on my shelves over there. When I first pulled this out to play with Sam and another guy, they were like, no. Because it shows this cutesy little anime cat and fish. You're like,
It looks like.
You know this is going to happen. The cat's going to get
The fish?
dinner.
oh, okay. Well, anyhow, but the game itself is actually a pretty good worker placement game. I mean, you have your cats, your workers, and you're placing them around in fishing zones, and you need to basically upgrade your boat to go out to the farther fishing zones and then catch different fish. And the fish will sell differently depending on what season it's in, spring, summer, fall, or winter. And I like that. I mean, there was a bit of clunkiness about it. It's not a perfect game, but it's such a unique one, which is why I still have it in my collection. Besides, I like worker placement games, and so do you. And Sam did not dislike the game. He wanted to. He wanted
tried.
to.
Yeah,
But-
it's just so cute.
Well, no, that's not why. Cat and fish. You're number 7. Uh-oh. Cosmic Encounter.
No. Mine. That's not obscure. Otherwise, I would have. No. My number 7 is a game about sailing around the world back in the Dark Ages. It's called Caravalis. And it's a game that you've played it before.
Oh, this is the Portuguese game I want to say? It's
Yes,
called.
that is correct. Well,
It's
yes.
called Caravelas.
Caravelas. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for
that.
showing off your
Thanks.
accent.
Just helping out. You're
Okay,
welcome.
Thanks a lot. Anyway.
This is when we went and got spices and bring them back?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
You sail around the
Pepper. You're building buildings with pepper.
Yes, exactly. You're sailing around the Cape of the Cape of Africa,
Right.
and you're trying to get establish trade routes with all of these eastern countries, and you can do things on the South American continent as well. And there's different ways to score points and all of that kind of stuff. But you all start in. Is it Portugal? I thought it was Spain. I think you're sailing for Spain.
I want to say it's Portugal because I'm pretty sure the game comes from Portugal, but I might be wrong. It might be Spain.
Anyway, you start on the Iberian Peninsula. We'll nail it down that way.
Whoa.
And
Dropping knowledge!
you can you can sail across and you have to follow the currents of the ocean, and that's one of the things that I really thought was coolest about it, is because I hadn't really seen a game that did that before, where it actually you had to follow the currents, and there were optimum moves, and then there were other ways that you could work around.
I was trying to go through dangerous currents. Yeah, I like that.
Dangerous currents and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was really cool. It is sort of a how do I want to say it? I want to say no, it's not boring. Golly.
That game was really slow and boring.
It is a little slow. It's unforgiving, though. If you make some mistakes, you can get trapped, and you really get put through the ringer.
As time has gone by, I'm not convinced of the replayability of it, that it will be super diverse. But yes, it is a pretty cool idea.
I think for what it is, it was thematic in that it did well. You felt like you were commanding this ship, and you had to be careful with how you moved. You couldn't just, okay, I'm going to move here and then I'm going to move here. You know, you had to put some forethought into it, and that's what I liked about it. It was the first sailing board game that I thought captured that mechanic well.
All right.
Of having to think where you're going. So, Caravelas.
Number 6.
Okay, my number 6 is a dexterity game because apparently that's the cool thing to do on these lists. But it's a big, expensive game when I got it called Fubi. F-U-B-I. You ever see this game?
Fubi!
It's a soccer game.
I'm sure it's not an energy drink.
It's a soccer game where you use the little sticks that you take from Lunchables, and it has that.
Lick 'em?
Yeah, you flick this little metal ball around. There's pegs in the board, and then the walls of the soccer field basically were like this really stretch tight fabric, so it bounced off them. So I would shoot and try and get it in your goal, and you would shoot and try and get my goal. And after I played it maybe 30 times, I was like, hey, this hasn't changed. You know, it's still just shooting. It's like, you know.
I'm getting better at it.
So it's really entertaining. It's certainly not worth the price. I mean, it was like going for $200 at one point. It was really expensive. You both almost at a simultaneous spit take there, but it was really cool. I was glad to have gotten a copy of it back when it was cheaper, and now I think it's out of print. But that's a Fubi.
It will be soon.
Number 6.
At that retail value. My number 6 is probably one of it is one of the more well-known games, but it still does not have the buzz like it used to have, and it really never really had that much buzz. It's got 444 users rating it, and that is Batu, Storm of the Horse Lords.
Oh yeah, that's like a game that disappeared off the.
Yeah, it just dropped off the face of the earth, and I thought it was a really cool game.
Play it?
No, I know what you're
It's a
talking
really
about,
cool
though.
game.
There was
where
an expansion to that game. Did you know that?
Yeah, there is. There is. And that's also all
Had
rather
Batu come
obscure.
out now, it would have been kickstarted.
But
Yeah.
it's a game where your one player is the barbarian hordes. Actually, you're all kind of barbarian hordes.
Yeah, you're all coming
attacking
in.
the city, and you're trying to gather up as much points and loot as possible. But it was a really one of the first games that I ran across that had that theme of Mongolian hordes attacking. There's also Chang Ching, which almost made my list, but,
Yeah, but that doesn't have the rah thing.
Right, it
It's more
doesn't.
Like, hey, here's a wall.
right, you're preparing the wall for the Mongolian.
The problem with that game is it's very light.
what Chang Ching or
No, the Batu.
Batu is it is light, but it's cool.
I should say it's a problem, but you should know if you're playing it, you're not.
It looks like
It looks like dun, 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 dun,
No,
but it's more
no,
like
it's
move
not.
and just roll dice.
And that's one of the things I liked about it. It is very light, but it still had that very.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's still on my shelves at home, and I've been itching to play it here recently, as a matter of fact. So that's
right.
Batu, Storm of the Horse Lords.
been itching.
To you.
You might have to play that.
Oh, why? Here comes the next game.
Here comes the
Itchy
light.
Scratchy.
Itchy scratchy.
Stankfoot is my no.
Are you serious?
No. Okay, my number 6 is a game by Bruno Catala, actually, and it's called Burdigala.
Bordigala.
And Burdigala.
You better have written these down because there's no way I'm gonna remember that spelling.
No, yeah, I have it.
Okay.
It's a place. I forget where. Let me know. But anyway, Burdigala is it's basically a roll and move, but it's sort of like it's a little bit like Blue Moon City, where you're building buildings with other people, and when it finally hits that threshold, it gets built.
Right.
But you roll, and you get to choose out of the 2 dice which one you use, and your guy moves. And if when you land next to one of the places on the board, you build it. When it's finally done, you flip. You can also take some special actions. It's kind of what Bruno Catala does, which is special actions with some strategy. It's sort of his mix. And it's a great game, but it's really hard to find, and I want one.
No. I want one.
Anyway, my number 6, really neat stuff, Burdigala.
Number 5.
All right, my number 5 is actually one of the most obscure games on my list. It's one of the most obscure games that I own, and I got it from Thomas.
Well,
And
that's a surprise.
It is a game that probably won't have as much appeal. It is called The Journeys of Paul, and this is the game that I really enjoy being a
Cactus
Christian.
games.
I enjoy the idea. The idea of the whole game is that you're going around the Middle Eastern area establishing churches, but kind of the weird thing about the game is that each player can sow discord in the other players' churches so that their churches lose value, and basically the whole idea is it's if you know the life of Paul, it's kind of morbid because the first person to reach Rome wins. And
Yay!
Rome, Paul wasn't going to Rome to win anything, but anyway, it's a really I thought it was a really cool idea of traveling around, establishing churches, and then the bad side of me was I thought it was also really cool to be able to discord the other churches while I'm at it.
This is the second game on Sam's list that came packaged in a tube. Actually, yours is in a box.
Yeah.
But the original version came in a tube.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Sam's
Well-
top 10 tube list.
Yeah.
Top 10 tube tops. Let's go.
Oh no, not go there.
Wow. Number 5 for me is a game called something in Russian. But in English, though, it's called Founders of the Empire.
Oh.
The game this is probably the newest game on this list.
It's the newest game on anyone's list. It just came out.
It just came out not very long ago.
That's from Right Board Games.
Thank you, and it's a great little game. The reason I was okay with putting it on the list because it is so new is because I know that game will not be.
Yeah, it won't ever.
Big.
Because of cover.
Because of the cover is really bad, but it's also probably not very well distributed. Anyway, Founders of the Empire is a great resource management spatial relation game. Basically laying tiles, gathering resources, building up, getting points. That sounds boring, but it gave me a vibe of Seven Wonders meets Tiles, and it was really neat. I really liked it. So check it out if you can find it. Founders of the Empire.
All right. My number 5 is an older game. I do not remember who made it and such. It's called Assault on Ganymede. This is one of those games, the moon of, is that Jupiter or Saturn? I can't remember. I think it's Jupiter. Anyway, this is one of those games that came out probably late 70s, early 80s, and didn't get a big distribution, and has like cool stuff and stuff that's not so cool. Like, it originally used cubes, although there was a expansion maybe that had plastic little dudes in it. And when you attacked other people, you put them all in the bag and would pull from the bag, and then the more that came out won. I guess it's almost like a precursor to the cube tower, in a sense.
Right.
And it had a really cool board. It had that 50s retro artwork, and it's
like Flash Gordon.
Yeah, and then but there was some roll and move mechanisms around it Flash Gordon. I think it was a ripoff of Flash Gordon. Really, probably that would be my guess. Anyhow, though, it's a really big box and had some really cool stuff, really artwork. This is like the secret grandfather of Fantasy Flight games. Maybe that's what I should call it. Maybe then more people would play it. Anyway, that is Assault on Ganymede.
The top 10 secret grandfather of games.
Number 4.
All right, my number 4 is a game that only has 129 users rating it, and that is Hoo-Yah, the Navy SEALs card game.
Really?
And I really enjoy this game. It is a very simple card game. Has a couple of quirky things, calling a meeting of everybody, and you have to stop and gather what you have.
Before we go farther, gentlemen.
How many yellow cards do you have?
Exactly. Are you ready to go?
2? We cannot attack anybody.
Exactly. So it is very. The theme is nothing but pasted on, but the theme works with what you're doing.
Yeah, you can still get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still get into it. You
Play
can still
solo also?
role play a little bit. I ain't playing solo.
Your disdain for solo gamers, sir.
No, not solo gamers. You guys play games by yourselves all you want. I'm just not going to do it because I don't think it's fun. Anyway, my number 4, Hoo-Yah, the Navy SEALs card game.
All right. My number 4 is a party game, which I got at Barnes & Noble's, I believe, in one of their clearance sales several years ago. But it's one of the biggest party games you'll ever see, called Spinnergy.
Oh, yeah.
Spinnergy has this really big device in the middle where you spin 3 wheels and it will give you 3 words. Now, granted, they could have just made 3 decks of cards and you pulled a card from each deck.
But just the cool factor goes.
That's right. And they even made an expansion where they had different rings you could put on these things. There was a chocolate expansion. I'm not kidding. There was a sports expansion. Anyway, you would spin it and get these 3 words. And then it was like a creativity and writing experience where you write an essay as to why you were late for school. But you were trying to use those words that had been spun. And if you did so...
So it's like a school assignment? This game is like a school assignment.
Okay, I agree, but this is what was really interesting. You had to use the 3 words that were there, but then the person who was the judge would write down a list of words that he thought other people would use. You couldn't pick the or two, but just regular words. And if he got a word that you put into your little story, he would get a point. And that was pretty cool, trying to guess.
I'm going to do that at school, but I don't think I want to sit around with you guys and play.
No, right?
I am using that at school. Do you have it?
No, the box was too big.
Energy!
It was a really ugly green and orange box. Did you like it? The problem is you need like a bunch of creative people, and you need people who aren't gamers. By what I mean is, if I said write a thing and you need to use chocolate and this and that, and they would write like a 6-word sentence using those 3 words and no other words. Oh, you didn't guess any of my words. Yeah, because you're a moron.
Yeah.
You know? You don't make games fun. Anyway, that's Spinergy.
Okay. My number 4 is a. This is the second trick-taking game on this list, and I believe this one actually played
I'm
with
so
you, Sam.
surprised.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we played this together. It's called Ebes or Ebes. It's Ebbes.
EBBES.
Sure,
That's not Ebbs?
or Ebs.
Spell it faster.
EBBES.
Ebs.
Anyway, go ahead.
Ebs. Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a game that came out, I want to say, in Essen last year. And it only has 152 people who own it as of right now. It's really cool because, I mean, the game looks awful like most of these games, but it's really neat because you don't pick Trump, you don't pick the suit that gives you points at the beginning. You pick that as you play out the hand. And it's really interesting because the timing issues that brings into the game are neat. I like it a lot.
I remember it now.
You know what I'm talking about?
That mechanic, what you just taught, picking Trump as you're playing.
Right. When someone plays a specific number, then it triggers what becomes Trump, and so on. Anyway, really cool card game. That's a keeper for me. I'm a fan of trick-taking games, obviously.
You played that up at Cool Stuff, right?
I believe we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
it's
remember.
it's neat. I really like it. So my number 4, Ebs or
Ebs.
Ebes or Ebes
Who knows?
or probably not that one.
Number 3.
All right, my number 3 is a trio of games in the same box. So that's not really true. They just kept making the game more complex. The easiest version was called Packroo, and then it was Shackroo, and then a Zackroo. Packroo has 46 ratings. Shackroo has 24, and a Zackroo has 18. They got less and less. Do you remember this
Three
game?
together is less than 100.
Yeah, I know. But you wouldn't rate one without the other. Anyhow. The game itself is an abstract game, and I was thinking, you mentioned that you had actually put an abstract game in your list. Mm-hmm. I think we could have easily put a lot of abstract games in our list because they go obscure so quickly.
Yes.
There was...
Because they're not good.
No, it's not that, it's just that they don't... There was... I almost picked Columns.
They're hard to sell because they're typically expensive.
Yeah, they're also... Especially when they have nice one pieces. This one did. This one is essentially a slow abstract strategy version of the bike game in Tron, where each turn you're placing pieces on the board, making your arrow move, and trying to cut the other person off. And as the game got more complicated in Shackroo and Zackroo, there were special abilities and things you could do to jump and trap the other person, the other people.
Is it a little bit like Corridor in that way?
They were called...
No, it was... No, Corridor is a little different. This one is... I don't know how to explain it, but I mean, Corridor, you're making walls.
Yes.
No, you were deliberately trying to cut the other person off all the time.
Okay.
So, anyway, that's Shackroo, or Packroo, or a Zackroo.
Or...
Anyway, go. What's your number 3?
All right, my number 3 is a game I've mentioned once, I believe, on one of these top 10 lists, and this is a dexterity game, again, in which you are elephants, and there is a big plastic tree in the center of the game, of the table that is spinning, with leaves hanging off of it, and you have to use a party favor. And blow it out, and you catch the leaves, and they curl back up, and you spit them out on people's playing boards.
That sounds like a very hygienic game.
Trotofent.
Trotofant.
That's right. I think I've...
Do you have this game?
I do not have this game.
I've
It's very hard to find.
I've seen it being played at University of Miami.
That's right.
One of those
That's
things.
right. The game's ridiculous. I mean, the game is like...
You wouldn't play it?
It's like 5 minutes, okay, first of all. But it's like just the most ridiculous, funny thing.
Does somebody clean the party favors between games?
Yes.
Do you actually have to, like, wash?
Yeah, you just wipe it down.
On the shirt.
So you've got...
All right, it's good. Here.
You've got 5 people's DNA in this thing.
Safest game to play. Not to mention, as you're blowing, you're basically all spitting at each other the whole time.
Oh, no. You can. That's in the variant rules where you can actually take it off and spit at someone. But anyway, Trotofont.
All right, what's your
My number 3.
What's your number 3, Sam?
All right, my number 3 is the other one on my list that kind of pushed the envelope as far as how far I was willing to go up the number of users rating it right around the 500 area, and that is Dust Tactics. Now, Dust, in and of itself, is probably another rather obscure game.
It's getting close to being that way.
Yeah.
Because it came out, and I think probably the reason it's not well known is because it's too much, in my opinion, like Risk. But offshoot of Dust was Dust Tactics, where it took and made it a miniatures game. Same universe, so to speak, same time frame, same years that are going on. It's all, I believe, World War II.
It's like an alternate World War II.
universe.
Yeah.
Alternate universe. And it's Germans versus Americans, and there's some Russians thrown in there now too. Zombies are in there now too.
Really?
You name it. And
Of course.
has a little bit of the Cthulhu, Hellboyish type stuff in there as well.
There's Cthulhu in there now, though.
There's no Cthulhu.
It's not Cthulhu. It's the same.
Baby.
It's
It's
the.
coming.
I can't remember what they call it.
He's always coming.
It's the same stuff as Tannhauser. The same.
Like Supernatural.
The supernatural version. The Germans have tapped into it, just like normal. But anyway, Dust Tactics is a really cool miniatures squad level combat game, tactical, where it's meant to be played on. They come with boards that have almost 2 or 3 inch by 2 inch by 2 inch squares on the boards, and it's you have missions, you have things that you're supposed to accomplish or take out the other person. But the miniatures are really, really nice, and it's a sound tactical game. So it made my list. Dust Tactics.
All right.
Cool.
Number 2.
My number 2 is another Hava game. My last game was a Hava game, by the way. And this is a game called, I played it first in German. I forget what it's called in German, but it did come out with an English cover. It's called Strong Stuff.
This is where you use a straw and stick it in your nose.
And you blow on a... No, it's you make a ring with tokens, and you have a little bear, a little wooden bear that has a little tray on his head. And it's a stacking game.
Oh, I had that game. I didn't know it was called Strong Stuff.
In English it is. You probably have a German cover. So it's really neat because I've played it tons, and it's just always a riot because it's so simple. You move the bear with a single hand, and then you put a little wooden cylinder on top of him. And that stack on him starts to grow, and so you have to you start getting all nervous, and you start laughing at each other, and you're moving the bear around the circle, and everything comes crashing down. It's Jenga-ish, but the fact that you have to pick him up and move him, and people can be like, "Oh, watch out!" Isn't that you can kind of rib each other. It's a funny game.
Yes.
Right as you said Jenga, I was thinking this is a Jenga variant.
It is, absolutely.
I think this game is absolutely amazing for 4-year-olds.
I've played the heck out of it with grown-ups, and we are laughing till our sides hurt.
A mess out of it. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. The mess. I played the mess out of it with grown-ups.
All right, what's your number 2?
All right. Well, my number 2 is a game that I've actually recently talked about on a yet to be released. Maybe.
It's been released.
It has been released. Okay. Audio podcast of the Dice Tower. And that is a game called Eruption, where you each take a village.
Raise a child.
Plays up to 6 people. Plays up to 6
Fine,
people.
you
You each take a village, and you're trying to protect your village from
Go to
the
the
volcano that's erupting in the middle of the board. And you can place lava flow tiles that lead into your opponent's village, and then they take heat. And
Sam's games are mean.
as the heat rises.
All my games are about this is silly. You blow on stuff. You feel things. His games are all you go in there and hit people. You burn them. Why are all your games mean?
I don't know, man. It's just the way it is.
Now, this is a fairly light game.
This is very, very, very light. There is nothing heavy about this game at all. It's been a big hit at youth group the few times that I've taken it there. My family really enjoys playing it. And it would almost be, I think, almost a filler type game for regular gamers. People at a game night or something like that.
Cool.
But it does go about 30 to 45 minutes. Possibly 45 minutes to an hour. if you try to overthink stuff. But Eruption is
You look like you're losing your mind.
one of those things, one of those games that it has no buzz anymore at all. I don't hear people talking
I
about
really
it
like
at all.
Eruption with 4-year-olds. No,
Sorry, it doesn't work that way.
I've
Doesn't
never
work
played
that
it.
way.
I've never played it.
So only 310 users are rating this one, and that's Eruption, my number 2.
Here's my number 2. Fragor Games. They're well known now for Snow Tales and their big games. This was the first one they did. It comes in a VHS cassette box because that's pretty much.
What? Half the crowd's like, huh?
What is this VHS of which you speak?
But it's called Leapfrog, and it's a game that the pieces barely fit inside, but everyone actually gets these little frogs, and you put them in a row, and you're trying to not land in the pot at the end of the game because you automatically lose. And what you do each turn of the game, yeah, I know everyone's gonna play with frogs now, is you take these chips, you have a number of the chips, and you place one next to your frog, you flip them over, and if you played a higher one than someone else, you move farther ahead.
My
No,
frog
those are not the
doesn't leave.
those are not the leapfrog
Frog
things.
doesn't leave.
It's a very silly game, just trying to outmaneuver people, and you want to be in the front at the end of round 1, you want to be in the back at the end of round 2, and then at the end of round 3, you want to be in the front and not in the pot, because whoever's in the pot automatically dies.
That's true.
So
Dies of the munchies.
What? Oh, moving on.
The component quality is amazing. Not really.
no, look, this was their first game,
I
but
understand,
I
yeah,
still like it. It's
No,
one of
it's
those
good.
little quirky games. So that's my number 2, Leapfrog.
And finally, number 1.
All right, who goes last?
Oh, great and powerful die. Roll for me. That's a 2.
Oh.
3. Yeah! You're going to have to do that from now on now.
Yes.
All right. Are you going last?
I will go last.
Who goes first? Sam or Z or me?
Z.
Okay.
Good.
All right, my number 1 is probably the best, well, the most known game from all the ones I have here, but it had 111 people who said they owned it. And this is another game I actually played with Sam.
It's a trick-taking dexterity party game.
It's a card game called Gem Rush, put out from is it GMT?
Is this the one that had the
No, is it? What are the ones
Not
that? No,
GMT.
I'm sorry, Victory Point games.
Victory
That's
one?
what-
Okay, yeah. It had the little
That come in those weird little
wooden
boxes.
one that you had to
Yeah, you got to rub off the soot.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
It's the game before the game.
It's great. It comes with its own napkin. But anyway, Gem. It does. Yes.
I remember
Gem
it.
Rush is it's a very simple card game where you are going to the mines as dwarves and you are building or finding rather what's down there, scoring for digging into new places, and you need to basically manage your hand for different colors. And if it takes a blue and orange to cross into the next spot, which is not there yet, you play blue and orange, and you flip a tile, which is a card really. It's not a tile, it's a square card, and then you lay it down. And you get some points for crossing that threshold, and you can play cooperatively, which I don't really like, or competitively. And it's a neat, quick, simple card game with cool special powers on the tiles, on the cards. I really like it. I've played it several times with high school kids. I've played it with Sam, like I said, and I think it's an easygoing, good feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
You didn't have to tell her to shut the door.
No.
That was good. Can I
Training.
open this? No, or-
It's a secret what's in here.
I'll tell you what it's not. Gem Rush. My
You don't know
number
that?
1.
Okay. My number 1 is a game that came out a while ago from Italy, from Angelo Perazzi, and that is War Angel. Now, this one actually had the most ratings. I had like 213. But I think that it's still pretty obscure. War Angel is a totally unique game. It uses flipping to resolve combat, although I just used dice and said 4, 5, 6s were hits and 1, 2, 3s were misses.
Okay.
But you would pick, the original game came with 10 different races, but he eventually released 100 different races. And he started with somewhat serious races like humans and dwarves, but he eventually got to races of pigs and mushrooms and really weird stuff. Now he does really cool artwork.
Clown Burger King.
But each race had different units, and they each had a different board that they would start on. You would have these boards. I would have a board. You'd have a board, and they'd have warp points that connected them. And so we're moving and warping and fighting each other, and with special abilities. It's really wonky, really weird, but I do like it, and I thought it was cool that there was so many different combinations. You know, he has one army that's made up of pinheads. You know, the guy from Hellraiser.
Oh.
That's the entire army. Another army of...
Those guys look weird.
Oh, I know, but that was one of the armies in this game. That's like one of the expansion ones. Mm-hmm. And then he has every animal. There's an army for you. There's an ape army, a pig army, you know, a dog army, etc. It sounds super silly, and it is super silly, but the game actually was pretty involved, pretty cool. I like it. So War Angel.
Cool. Wow. All right. I have to preface my number one.
Never a good sign.
Because I really am kind of a mainstream kind of gamer. I don't usually...
This was the hardest list for Sam, I think.
don't really trundle off into the whole obscurity realm of board games.
I trundle.
But this, I was actually really shocked that this had less than 500 people rating it because of the parent game that it comes from. But Catan Geographies Germany has almost no buzz going on about it at all anymore.
It did seem to drop off the face of the planet.
It came out, it was a huge hit, supposedly. I mean, it had beautiful pieces, beautiful board, beautiful everything.
It says the word Catan on the cover.
It was like, and then just...
That's true.
Well, maybe that's because it just got caught. I mean, there's so many Catan products.
I guess so.
It got kind of lost in the shuffle.
This one gave you so much for your buck. I mean, I'm kind of nerdish about this kind of stuff, but it actually came with an almanac that gave you facts about Germany, about why they included each of the different types of things. And I thought that was a really cool thing. Now, maybe it was, too much, or...
I don't want to learn when I'm playing.
I guess so, but I just thought it was really neat because it had the historical factor to it. I used to live in Germany for a few years. My dad was in the U.S. Air Force, stationed at one of the bases there, and it took me back. I just really enjoyed it. I mean, some of the places I had been to, so I was able to reminisce and that type of thing. But Catan Geographies, it only has 444 people rating it on the Geek, and I just thought that was really low, especially for a Catan game. But anyway, that's my number one semi-obscure game. Catan Geographies Germany.
Well, those are our picks. Do you agree? Disagree?
Probably not.
Of course, you always disagree. Of course, for those of you who disagree a lot, you never make it this far in a video anyway.
Wow.
No, there's always a guy who says,
Burn.
I got bored after 10 minutes. And
I wanted to see the things on your list, but I just can't sit for 50 minutes. Squirrel!
And I will refrain from saying anything.
Next time, come join us for our really obscure games list. I don't know what we're doing next time yet, but we'll see you guys then. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
And I'm Sam Healey.
You're watching The Dice Tower.